RBA, please show some love on behalf of the METCO organization here tonight. Showing love as we rename our institution after one of its great founders, our current CEO, representing from METCO, Miss Millie Arbaje-Thomas.
Everybody, thank you so much for the invitation to be here on behalf of METCO for Boston Public Schools renaming. I may be working for METCO, but I am extremely proud of what the city of Boston has been doing and is doing. I always say to people, please do not compare METCO to BPS, because I don't believe in comparisons of that. We all have different challenges. We all have different opportunities, and I have an incredible respect for BPS because my husband's entire career, since out of college in his 20s and we're now in our 50s, has been working for Boston Public Schools, and he is now a superintendent of high schools. This school falls under him, funny enough. I also wanted to say that our history with Boston Public Schools is deep for METCO. If it wasn't for Ruth Batson and her being a mother in the Boston Public School systems, the actual METCO program would have never been born, you know? So, she actually was a mother who and I've studied Ruth Batson extensively because I speak about Ruth every single day of my life, literally. We built an exhibit at METCO and she's all over our walls, and she is the mother and the founder of the METCO program. I consider myself the third mother. She's the first mother. Jean McGuire is the second. Believe it, in a history of 58 years, I'm the third, because Jean McGuire held it down for a very long time. So it's an honor for me to say a little bit to you about Ruth Batson. So basically, when Ruth Batson had her children in schools here in Boston, she actually was talking to friends of hers that were actually in white schools in Boston Public Schools, and they were talking about science fair, science projects, and she said, well, my children don't have that. How come you're talking about that and I'm not hearing that happening in my school? So Ruth went to the Boston School Committee to talk to Louise Day Hicks and actually asked to admit that there was actually segregation in our school system, and can we do something about it? She held that meeting, unfortunately back then, not now, Michelle Omeyeru, because we've known her from before, so happy to have you in this role, our queen. But, you know, she basically didn't get the Boston School Committee to listen to her. And she wanted to desegregate it, to acknowledge that this was happening, but the school committee then did not acknowledge that. So Ruth was asked to stop the meeting, and she couldn't continue talking and advocating. She was just stopped. Then they said, okay, Ruth, you can come and speak to us again, but as long as you don't mention segregation in our schools. Of course, Ruth came again, and of course she mentioned segregation, because that's how fierce she was. And then the meeting stopped again. And then she got invited one last time, 3 times to the Boston School Committee. And the third time, the same rule applied. Do not mention that our schools are segregated. And of course, she mentioned it. And she was asked to leave the meeting. So, and like Mayor Ruth said, you know, 50 years later, we're celebrating the 50th year anniversary. And she did accomplish what she was trying to accomplish. But it did take a long time, you know, for this to take place. Ever since the Brown versus Board of Education decision is 70 years old this year as well. And the Gary decision to desegregate Boston Public Schools is 50 years old. So here we are still fighting for something that was actually birthed many years ago, and we're now living it. So shortly after that, the suburbs heard Ruth Batson talking that she wanted a better education for her children and for the children of Boston. So the suburbs began to call Ruth Batson to meetings. And in less than 1 year, guys, in less than 1 year from these conversations with 7 suburban communities, METCO was incorporated, a board of directors was created, and in buses rode Boston with 220 students to the suburbs in 1966. And you know where Ruth Batson interviewed the people? In her living room. 220 students were interviewed in her living room to join the METCO program. And then when Martin Luther King was assassinated 2 years later, the METCO program doubled in size to 28 districts and over 1,000 students, all under Ruth Batson's leadership. So this is how fierce this woman was. One person mobilized an entire community in Boston and mobilized an entire community in the suburbs and gave an opportunity to integrate schools in the suburbs that were still working towards that mission of inclusive, equitable schools in our suburban communities. So you are your name in this school after somebody amazing, and I hope that all of you students realize that legacy that lies behind this name, and that they can continue to figure out how this school can be a catalyst for change, for activism, and for growing leaders that can be advocates like her, because she gave us an incredible example during a time where it was unsafe to speak up, and it was dangerous to speak up. And yet, look at where we are now. So I'm so happy and proud to be here. I've been working with METCO to try to name a school after them, and they haven't listened to me. But Boston listened, nothing to me, but I mean, Boston listened to this legacy and to this name. And I am so proud that finally somebody gave Ruth Batson the recognition that she deserves. So we're here for you to try to continue to live her